Welcome, everybody. The first episode of the Mythopedia podcast. It's a new concept of Myth Esports. And before we dive into the concept of the podcast, we start with the introduction of everybody here. Let's start with Limbeki. Who are you?
Hey guys, my name is Martin, known as Limbeki. I'm 24 years old, living in the Netherlands. And my daily job is working for the Dutch Army since 2018. Next to my job, I love to work with esports. That's why I'm joined Myth Esports in 2021, where I started with Rocket League Manager because I met Borico, aka Stein. So I started with Rocket League Manager and managed some teams. With Fast, I saw that I could do many more things than just manage a team. Fast became one of the owners of Myth Esports. And why I joined Myth Esports will we talk about later.
Yeah, of course. All right, thank you. Stein, who are you?
Yes, well, since you already said my name. My name is Stein, aka Brico. I was the founder of Myth, and I started it all in 2021, I think. 2020, not even sure anymore. So it's been a while, and right now I'm the CFO of Myth. So I do all the financial stuff, and I also have a few games under my department, like Rainbow Six, Fortnite, for example, and I used to do Call of Duty as well. I still study. I'm 22 years old, so still going strong with my study in IT, and I should be done by the end of this year. So hopefully, then I can full-time work finally, and yeah. I think that's most that needs to be told.
No, we'll dive into the rest soon. Kevin?
All right. Well, hi, I'm Kevin. I'm 24 years old, and some people know me as Tutus Frutus, also my gamer tag. In real life, I'm a software engineer full-time, and on the side, I joined Myth almost 2 years ago as the manager for League of Legends, our first team. And slowly grew into head of League of Legends, and currently I'm the co-CEO together with Twan. A bit more on that later. And yeah, I basically joined Myth out of my old, how do you say it, passion for esports. I used to play League of Legends on a decent level for quite a few years, and then I decided to focus more on study and game a bit less. But then a few years later, Twan hit me up, but we'll go into that later. And basically that's where my spark rekindled a little bit for esports.
All right, cool. Well, last but not least, I think, I'm Twan, also known as Kipsate, or I Kipsate. I'm kind of the grandpa of the group, I think. I'm 28 years old, married, having two children. One is 4 years old, and the youngest one is 1 year old. I do own my own company as a daytime job, and next to that, I have a big passion for esports and gaming. A long time ago, I've been an esporter like 11 years ago now. I used to play Combat Arms Europe, for those who know the game. I ran the biggest clan together with my brother, the biggest clan of the Benelux. It's called Rage Quit, by the way. And we were number 13 of Europe, and I was the captain of the Dutch national team. That's kind of where I start loving esports and the competitive aspect of gaming. And since then, I think I never really let go of esports. After that, I played like Combat Arms at a high level. I went to school, study, life, etc. happens. And back like 2.5 years ago now, I started my own company, and that's when I kind of grew back into the passion for esports again. And at that point, I started searching on the internet and all the things that are happening in the esports scene in the Benelux, because I kind of knew the esports scene in general, about like the League of Legends Worlds, LEC, and all that stuff. I also watched it back then, but never kind of dived into the esports scene in the Benelux. I did it like 2.5 years ago, and that's where I met Martin and Stein. I think we met through Twitter, if I'm correct, right?
Yes,
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, we started talking about my passion about esports, my passion about gaming, the things I did in life, like starting a company. And I joined at the beginning of 2022, first as the team manager of League of Legends. Well, like a few months later, Kevin took my spot. And yeah, as I said, I had some experience in starting a company and like growing a business, and I kind of knew how to start a business because I already had some experience in work life for 4 years back then. And we kind of soon found out that I should move a bit up in the organization to like get my experience into the organization and kind of grow from the start to where we are now, I guess. All right. Before we dive into the rest of Myth and all the stories behind us, maybe it's good to start about the podcast itself. Like, what's the format of the podcast? Why are we starting it? And I think it's Kevin, you should tell us, I think, the best.
Yeah, I think that's fine. So yeah, basically the idea for the podcast came because both we wanted more content, of course, and yeah, the ambition to share more knowledge with the whole region. So what we're doing right now with Myths is we're constantly developing, I think, in sectors like health and performance. And basically what we see in our region as a whole is that there's a bit of a lack of knowledge and sharing of that knowledge between other organizations. What we're going to do with the podcast is we're going to divide it into little segments. So let's say we want to do like a short session about health. Then we're going to do several recordings or several podcasts with guest speakers that we find interesting or that helped us develop our health aspect in the organization. And then we're going to have like little short series about that. People can follow it structurally. People can just click on what they find interesting. And then they can basically listen to whatever floats their boat, literally. From local talents to people in the European scene. And we're going to try to cater to all, but that's also difficult.
And what about the look and feel about podcast? Because like we're all having the face cam on right now, and kind of obvious we're sitting at home. Normally, like a podcast should be in a studio or something. What's that case?
Yeah, I think for us the importance is the reach, and it costs a lot of money to, of course, fly someone from like the United States to the Netherlands just to have like a little podcast show. So I think for us the importance is that people will listen to it at home, and the YouTube part or the visual part is a bonus. So what we're doing is with the webcam, people just sit at home, they're just like in their chill environment, and then they can join whenever and wherever. And it keeps the cost low, and it also makes it a bit easier for us to get better guests or people with limited time.
Yeah, and like the look and feel. I mean, we're all sitting at home in our spaces, like where we normally sit, and like the whole look and feel has to be like casual, right? So we have to just sit, relax, and talk a bit about esports, the passions we have, and share just our knowledge about esports and gaming.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
if a suit sits good for you, then feel free to wear a suit, right? But it's about being comfortable and just like talking, having a good casual conversation about the topic you're interested in.
Yeah. All right. And for the record, I'm the host, Kipsate, and I think I will be the host for the following episodes. But it doesn't have to be like I'm just asking questions. Just like we're going to have a talk about esports and everything about esports, because Mythopedia, the name of the podcast, everything about esports, and just like in a comfortable state, just have a chat, just have a talk, and tell the things we know about esports. And about things about esports, like we all started from a passion. We all love the competitive aspect of gaming. Stijn, you started with Myth Esports around 2021 or the end of 2020, I mean. Why did you even start with Myth?
Well, I've been manager and player for a few teams in the past. I wasn't amazingly good, obviously, but
Why obviously?
Well, I guess otherwise I'd be competing at Worlds right now against Faker, but no, I was a bit too trash for that. But it was really fun just being a player and being a manager, but I noticed that it took quite a lot of time, like for scrimming and such. And what really frustrated me is that most organizations there was always something wrong. It was either some people that were really, really toxic, or just companies and teams that just fell apart because people just didn't know how to manage an esports organization for a longer period, so for a long-term period. And I just thought, why wouldn't I just try it myself? I've seen enough teams and I've seen enough people in the scene to start. And I thought that I could do a better job with the right staff, with the right people around me. And I think that was the most important thing, to create an organization that has long-term value to the Benelux and just, stick around for a while and actually contribute to the whole Benelux scene. And I think there's still a long way to go for the Benelux, but with Myth, we're trying to do our part, I think.
Yeah. And like you just mentioned the word. I mean, we all know what it means. But imagine like people listening to us doesn't know like the ins and outs about the esports scene. You mentioned scrimming. What is it?
Right. So it's basically practicing with your team and to practice for official matches that actually count. And for me, the problem kind of was when I was younger. I'm 22, but when I played esports, I was like 17, I think. And there were a lot of teams that competed at quite a high level where I had to scrim till like 12 in the evening or in the night. And it was just too long for me. Like when I'm a manager, I can usually just pick my own times when I do certain stuff. Or right now when I'm CFO, I do a lot, but it's still, you can kind of pick your own times. And I think that was kind of the issue when I was younger, that I just couldn't really fit into those schedules.
All right. Okay.
Which,
And you mentioned you started as a player at several organizations. Martin, you said you was a player yourself as well. Why the step to an organization?
As player, it didn't work out as well because I was too bad, of course. Yeah, that's the truth. But as well, I've worked with many organizations as player, but on a low level. As well, I saw a lot of things were gonna go wrong. But the most important thing for me was that a lot of organizations don't make the connection with their players. So I met Stein, as I told.
How did you met?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I think I just got a DM from Stein on Twitter, if I'm not wrong. Just told me, oh, I'm interested in became a manager. So that's the first time I started to become a manager for Rocket League and stopped with being a player.
And that's so back in 2021?
21, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, the start of 21. That was close after Stein started with Myth Esports, of course. Yeah, because I was happy with this opportunity because player wasn't something for me. This is a new opportunity. I can do my own stuff. He gave me the space to do what I want within Rocket League. So yeah, I was happy with that.
Was Rocket League then the only team you had back in 2021?
I think we started off with League of Legends actually, but the point was there were a few games that we were really interested in, and I think to start off it was League of Legends and Rocket League. And I do remember that I saw a post of Martin on Twitter somewhere, and I think was looking for a team or something. I'm not sure. And then I sent him a DM like, "Oh, can you come and manage our Rocket League department?"
Rocket League team.
Yeah. And so it just started basically, and he's still here.
Yeah, and that was at the start of 2021 then. And you started with League of Legends team and Rocket League team then.
Yes.
And at the end of 2021, I think that's where we had the first contact, maybe.
Yes.
Or at the start of 2022, maybe something like that. What happened within the year?
A lot, many things happened this year.
Like
hitting the highest level of the Benelux in League of Legends.
I mean, in 2021, because you started together in 2021, right?
Yes.
And what happened within that year at 2021? Because we had contact at the end of 2021 or the start of 2022. So you did some things between a year, right?
Yeah, I think we showed our name in the Rocket Benelux in there's a tournament in Rocket League in the Benelux, of course. So we showed our name there. We showed our name in the in League of Legends. I think so. We made a little fundamental of Myth Esports, maybe. I think that's the most important thing and the only thing that happened. We explored as well on social media.
I think it was a lot of trial and error at the first, because I mean, we had some kind of experience, but it was really just see how everything went, just try to make some teams, try to make the right contacts, and try to find the right people for the right spots, for the staff positions and such. And I think that the first year was kind of just looking around what we want to do. And I think when you came on board, everything went a lot faster, and there was a lot of, with your experience, I think it definitely made quite a big difference.
I think it was really good to have you guys in here, because you guys have a lot of knowledge about the business side. So that helps us a lot as well.
Yeah, I mean that's the main thing why I kind of moved so fast from team manager to like the position I'm in right now, co-CEO, as Kevin mentioned. Because the business side of esports and business side in general. Maybe just a little look back to the moment I came in. It was as a team manager for the League of Legends team. And we had some contact about the team and the organization in general. I mean, you both guys had some questions about like running a business, a company, how to set up. Yes. And from the moment I kind of started more doing things for the organization in general, I think that's the point where Kevin came in, if I'm correct, Kevin.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew each other. I used to stream on Twitch. And you were in the community. I kind of managed within the stream. And from that point, we had more contact about like esports and League of. I think mostly League of Legends, if I'm correct. Just League of Legends esports in general. And then I started talking with you about like the contact I had with Martin and Stijn. And I think from that moment, the interest grew in like joining an esports organization, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think like we used to play League of Legends when you were not streaming, which was quite frequent actually. And then we would just chat about League of Legends, chat about like esport, that kind of stuff. Like, oh, you did something in esport? Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm joining Myth. What's Myth? And then you talk something about it. Then we had, I think, the barbecue it was, or like some offline event.
It was a community barbecue, yeah.
Yeah, at your place. I remember having to drive like an insane time for that. And then we finally arrived. You were like, oh yeah, by the way, wouldn't you like to join? Like, sure, I guess. Let me think about it real quick. And what do you expect, etc.
I think it was halfway 2021, right? Something like that.
Yeah. In June, I joined Myth, June 2021. And then, as a team manager for the then Division 3 Elite Series team.
Oh, yeah, Division 3.
Yeah.
Way back.
Without any experience or prior knowledge. Like, I was still studying software engineering, of course. It's a completely different branch. And I can think we can safely say that between all the highs and lows, we've learned a lot from those old teams, old experiences. But that was how I got in.
You mentioned like June 2021, right? 2022. I'm sorry. Yeah. And Myth made a debut at the first division Elite Series like 1 year later. The summer. Yes, 7 months. Yeah. What happened between that time? I mean, it's really fast for an organization. Like you mentioned, the third division of the Elite Series, the regional League of Legends competition.
Yeah.
How did it go so fast?
Well, so basically, of course, like what we always do is try to expand our network, and of course, keep everyone interested and keep everyone that you've worked with basically a bit attached to your organization. That makes sense. So you're trying to keep everyone involved, keep everyone hopefully in all the good spirits, right? Because you want to achieve some good stuff together, and maybe right, you can work together later. So what we did, one of our old players actually approached us, like, "Hey, we have this team, and they're playing. Well, they're probably winning the split. But if they do, they need an organization to support them because right now they were just a team with like the name Reapers, but there was no organization backing it. It was just like the original staff and the players were in the team, and they had no financial funding. They had no support for anyone else. So then we started talking about them, like, hey, maybe we can do an application so you guys can get to Div 1 anyways, because they were not allowed to actually get into Div 1 without us or without an
And then
organization
you mean
paying
the 5 players and the staff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were in talk with them, and basically what we did is we worked together to make a good presentation, and of course make sure that we had standards where everyone agreed to. So like, what salaries are we going to look like? What are we going to invest? What's the future going to look like? And who will the spot belong to? So we actually like merged them into Myth, of course, in the end. And on those terms, we did a presentation at the Unlocked studio, and they were quite enthusiastic, if I can say so. And we got into Div 1 already, like quite fast. We skipped the whole Div 2.
Yeah. Also, maybe for the listeners, we're kind of mentioning the Elite Series, Unlocked. Can we kind of try to map the Benelux scene? Because I think there are a lot of competitions and names like we're calling right now. Maybe not everyone knows them. So you mentioned Unlocked. What is Unlocked? Who is Unlocked?
So Unlocked is basically a tournament organizer. They also do other events and do other productions, more production studio. But in our case, they're the tournament organizer for the League of Legends scene as a whole. And their product, what they attach to the League of Legends, is called Elite Series. So Elite Series is basically the tournament that is directed by Unlocked, with 3 divisions, if I'm correct. I still think they do 3. Where you can start at Division 3, then you can promote to Division 2, and of course the best of Division 1 can play promo and relegations versus Division 1 to promote to the highest level of the Benelux, theoretically. And out of Division 1, you have the option to promote into EU Masters, which is the European scene, basically.
Yeah. And in the Benelux region, there are more competitions than just League of Legends, right? Or at least there was. Maybe Stijn or Martin, you kind of started like 3 years ago now. What kind of competitions or scenes are there in the Benelux, at least from the start?
I think that's a really good question, actually. Yeah.
You had for Unlocked as well. That's organizing the Rocket League Elite Series. But they made the choice to step off from that. Within my
When?
Start of this year, 2023. 2024. But what's in my opinion the wrong choice? But it's theirs, so I can say anything about that. But so Rocket Benelux is still here. They're trying to get the budgets to organize it themselves. So that's my thing for Rocket League. We also have a Rainbow Six team, but there was something from Ubisoft in the Benelux, but they standing on a pause, so they are trying to start again. But I don't know when, where. So that's a lack of information.
So
Should be this month.
It's just currently then just League of Legends as the esports competition in the Benelux, right?
I think there's also something for TFT, but for Teamfight Tactics, it's more of Benelux can participate in the ulterior league. So the Benelux is included, but it's kind of not. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Martin, you mentioned we also have a Rainbow Six Siege team. Like at Myth, we have multiple teams.
Yes.
Maybe good to tell what kind of teams do we have as Myth Esports.
We currently have soon a Rocket League team. We have right now a Rainbow Six team, League of Legends for the Elite Series, and we're working on CS:GO. Sorry, we also have CS:GO team.
CS2.
CS2. Sorry, that's true. New updates.
Kind of the same, right?
I'm far behind.
Apex
Legends doing really well on Europe level, so that's quite good.
Yeah, and we do have TFT player as well, right?
Yep.
Yes, that's what Kevin mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they mentioned the Benelux players who are able to compete in the France League, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
That's from Riot. I mean, they kind of merged the Benelux region and France to have one big competition.
No, what they did basically is the French competition is the big large competition, but what they did is they did another competition called Other EMEA, where everyone else that's not in one of the major regions, so France, the German speaking countries, so like the Prime League is for League of Legends, for example. They basically clustered all of those, and Benelux is kind of in between everything. So if you speak French, you can play in the French tournament. Otherwise, if you're, for example, Dutch, you can play in the other EMEA, where basically all the small countries can participate.
All right. So a lot of different competitions in a lot of different countries.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Maybe like Stijn, you kind of said I was a manager and player for several organizations, and I kind of had the feeling I could do things better. Maybe there are people listening or watching us. They're willing to start an organization themselves. What kind of tips do you have for them? Or do's and don'ts? I mean, don'ts are also kind of important, right?
Yeah, I think like we kind of did at the start is just to really try some stuff out. Just try our best. Just find a team. And I think what's really important, what I noticed, that if you have a really good staff lineup, so with you guys, the 4 directors, it makes a huge difference because you can't do it all by yourself because it's just too much work. And I think if you have a couple of friends maybe, or like a couple of people that are also really passionate about esports, I think it's way easier to just do it with 4 people than instead of doing it all by yourself. So I would definitely suggest not putting too much work on yourself. But I think, what's a good tip? I think just,
I think one important thing is don't make false promises to your teams. I think that's something that's happening a lot. You will get this if you reach this or something like that. But after the signing, there's nothing happen, and I think teams will not come back to you again. And that's also where you're not making the connection with your teams. I think that's really important to have connection with your teams and the community as well. So I think that's something good to not do that.
Yeah, I think if you are really, like you said, Martin, when you're really connected with your players, they are way more motivated to stay with your organization. And you also get, I think personally, if you have certain people that are quite well known in the region, for example, in the Benelux, and they have a really good view upon your organization, I think that's also really important to really have a good name, to really, that people don't think bad of you as an organization, because the word spreads quite quickly then.
Yeah, fair. I mean, it's a small world, right? But you mentioned like get in touch with players, get in touch with people. How do you even get in touch with the right people, or at least people? Like, how do we get in touch? How do I meet people?
Well, back in the day when I found all of you guys, it was mostly either through Discord, so shared Discord servers, like the one from, I think, League of Legends. There's like a really big League of Legends Discord. That's where I found a couple of people. There's also a lot of on Twitter. I personally use Twitter most in my time. Just looking around looking for team tweets and just see if I've shared contacts with anyone or if someone retweeted certain tweets. Sometimes you get across people that are really interesting, and you get the luck that you find the right people, like we did here.
Yeah.
And
so, if I'm correct, what you're telling is, if you don't use Twitter, start with it real quick. If you want to start your own organization, or at least willing to do something within esports, use Twitter.
Definitely.
Yep.
And next to that, start building contacts through like huge discords for like League of Legends, by example, or Rocket League, because there are community discords, right? And I mean, there is one for like the Elite Series Discord in League of Legends. There are a lot of looking for team posts or looking for scrims or all those kind of posts. But there are also like huge discords for just like the casual gamers who are just willing to have contact with people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it would be most ideal situation to have someone in your organization that has quite a lot of experience in a certain game. For example, I knew that Martin, he had quite a lot of knowledge about the Rocket League scene here in the Benelux, and already takes a lot of weight off my shoulders because I don't know anything about Rocket League or the community. So if you have someone who actually has some contacts and some knowledge about it, that's already a big plus, I think.
Well,
yeah,
I
but
think
before you get to those people, you have to like use Twitter, I suppose.
Twitter.
Then, yeah.
First follow Myth, and then you can.
Very
use
good.
I
Kevin?
think you forget like a major aspect as well. I think we all started here as well with we do some teams and we're gonna make sure they're competing well. We get the players, but what we were lacking at the beginning, especially, is the business contacts. And what I also see with a lot of organizations, they are on Twitter, and they can shit talk. They get some reach. Like for example, like it all works. They think there's no cash flow or there's no business contacts coming in. And like what we did as well, we went from Div 3 to Div 1. Suddenly you need a lot of money, and suddenly you want to do more, and you want to go to Europe, but Europe also costs even more money, and it's just like stacking up and up and up. And I think aside from, of course, you as an org should start to think about how you're going to generate your revenue and how you're going to make your organization something that does not rely on sponsorships, for example. I think you should also work on your network on LinkedIn. I think that's something people often forget until they actually need it. And how a network works is not like, oh, hey, hi, I have an organization, I need your money now. No, you build up a brand, you build up a connection. Then you're like, hey, we want to do something cool together, something meaningful, and see if we can somehow both benefit from that. Yeah. But if you don't have those connections, you suddenly have to speed run it, and then it's becoming tricky.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of an interesting point you mentioned here, the money part. I mean, most of people do have like esports, big monies. Everybody's getting paid a huge amount of money. Is that true?
Yes. Look at my imaginary Lamborghini.
Exactly.
So, like, everybody can start an esports organization, right? If you have a group of friends, you just put a logo on it, you put a name on it, and you have an organization. I mean, that's kind of how Myth started at the beginning, right?
Yes.
And from that point, you just started with some teams, as you said, and then we kind of, like Kevin and I got involved. Things became a bit more seriously. We started creating a business plan, and I think that's one of the things you actually should do as an organization if you have like the ambition to really grow to the highest levels of esports, like within the Benelux or even higher. I think you do need a proper business plan. You need to know where you want to go. You do need to know what are your mission and vision as an organization. So where do you stand for, and what's the value you bring to the scene and to like the potential partners or sponsors. I mean, that's really important as well, I think. So maybe a small recap. Make Twitter. Use Twitter. Follow Myth_NL.
That's the most important one.
Okay, that's the and just start building your network on Twitter and Discords. Just follow people and interact with them, because interaction is really important. Just not only create Twitter, but get to know people. Just follow them, interact with their tweets and whatever. Next to that, if you started like a group or organization with people, think about your ambitions, think about your mission and vision, and then start working on your network, expanding your network, telling your mission and vision, and then slowly start growing a real company. Am I correct? Did I miss a
Yes.
step?
Making a LinkedIn. I think the LinkedIn is as well for business side a good one to be
Yeah.
taken more seriously. I think.
That's a really good point. I mean,
I think
like
it's just an
for the
example.
yeah, but I think that's kind of also a really important one, especially for the hard business side. Like everyone, okay, I'm running my own company, right? So I'm kind of get my work on LinkedIn. That's not true in general, but 80% of my contacts from my work, from my daytime job, I get through LinkedIn. And so I think that's an important point as well, Martin. Like LinkedIn for the real
For
hard business
hardcore
side
business.
is really important as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, that's correct. Um, Kevin, you mentioned like do not speedrun relationships with potential partners. Like we kind of had to speedrun it. um, I mean, yeah, we had to. We can be fair. But what do you suggest to organizations like building their relationship with potential sponsors or partners?
Well, I think the major downfall most people do, and I think we had it as well in the beginning, is you're too focused on you want money rather than like of course the end goal is you have some continuity in your business because you want of course you need some of the money to actually run your teams, etc. But what you often forget is that we all think, oh yeah, but they just want exposure, just want this. But exposure is super generic. So anyone can offer exposure. Look at Google. If you have money, you can get exposure.
Yeah.
But how much do you care about that exposure? Not much. So I think the first thing what we did is we looked at what can we offer them, what can we make, how are we unique, and what can we offer them that they might be interested in. So for example, one of our first partners where we talked to was like, hey, we can try and sell your product, but actually like use it with our players because our players are in theory for us the way we should reach our audience. It's not that we just say, oh yeah, this is great, and then people will buy it. That's not how it works. People like a player, the player like a little small celebrity. And because the player activation that we can offer as an organization, your product, well, of course, gets a better view, gets a better relationship with a potential buyer. So what we did well, I think, is look for most those extra things we can do to make how do you say it, a partnership with us actually interesting, or stuff like what we do with Go Gaming right now is organize something for a charity, like a small good charity event, just a fun tournament, play video games. Everyone likes video games, otherwise you should not follow us in esports, right? Wouldn't make much sense. We can combine it with your company, which actually makes Go Gaming get more people to actually try their products, and they're like, "Oh, this is actually pretty great. It's better than I have at home," right? So I think it's a win for all parties involved, and in this case also for Kika because we actually were able to raise some money for a good cause.
What is Kika?
Oh yes, that might be the easy one to notice, but it's Children Cancer Free, literally translated, and it's a charity that focuses on, well, it's basically curing children's cancer, but of course that's not how easy it is. So they're funding scientific research in development of the cures.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the strength we did is like make ourselves a little bit more unique. And of course, I called in a very generic example, but we're doing way more things behind the scenes. But of course, you shouldn't spill all the originality, right? But I think that's what was our strength. And you notice that as soon as we started rushing for the money, people were not interested because, oh yeah, we've seen like 5,000 of you. Like we talked to Logitech. Oh, you're an esports org. Pick a number. You're like 300 in line, right? Just
Yeah. And I think those, like the companies with the money, are mostly the big ones. Like you mentioned Logitech and all those big companies. Why would they pick you as an esports organization from the Benelux? Why wouldn't they pick like G2 or those big teams? I mean, they do have the money to support them. So what
they
you
do.
mentioned, what you mentioned is think of your own value you can add to their company. Like, why would they pick you? Be different than the other esports organizations. So be one of a kind. Be different. Be unique. Yes.
Yeah, and I also think more of, an attachment feeling to an organization, to a person, is the importance here. Because of course, like when you have Logitech, you mentioned, it's just an example of a company, right? You have EMEA sales, you have local sales, regional sales per country.
Yeah.
You have regional sales for Benelux, so Benelux being 3 countries. So there's so many layers basically that they're trying to advertise to or to
Yeah.
cater to. So for example, if you mentioned G2, G2 is an international organization. So if you spend a lot of money on that organization, you have a certain demographic that might buy your products.
Yeah.
But then if, for example, the Benelux sales are mediocre or the Dutch sales are mediocre, you want something Dutch people are interested in. And in our case, for example, we try to cater to that Benelux region. So that's also why we're doing most content in English, because you have a Dutch, you have a French part, of course, Luxembourg as well. And what people forget is that when those people are actually organically interested in your content and in you as a company, things you say will be more likely to be accepted by them.
Yep.
Rather than if some internet celebrity says, "Oh yeah, Coca-Cola is amazing," for the 6,000th time, you're like, "Oh yeah, sure." You get paid for that, right? It's so obvious they don't care that much. But if your favorite org uses products they stand behind, you're like, "Oh, but these guys are clearly professionals. They use it. Might as well try it, right?" You
Yeah.
lower the bar.
And like you mentioned, when you talked about the partnership with Go Gaming, you mentioned you like video games, so you like esports. Is there a difference between like video games or gaming and esports?
Yes, but I think it's more of the, how do you say it? It's the intention. So like I can play video games casually or I can play them competitively. And when you play them competitively, you can play it for a rank system, like for your elo in certain games. Like, hey, I have 1,000 points, you have 3,000, you're better. Oh my god! But you can also try to play for a trophy, for a tournament, something physical, right? Actually, try to make your living out of it.
Yeah.
And I think what the difference is that when you're trying to achieve high levels in competitive esports, your life starts revolving around it. Where if you're playing slightly competitive or ranked, you're just playing it for fun, but you do want that rank, right? You want to be able to measure yourself against others. And I think when you're playing competitive video games, casual video games, you're way more laid back and you do whatever you enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big difference there. Like, I'm not saying you can't enjoy competitive esports, but there's some days you don't want to play, but you have to play.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And I mean, I think there is still a huge gap, at least in the Benelux, between like the gamers and esports. And the things we are doing, I think, I mean, that's my opinion with like Go Gaming, trying to fill the gap between the casual gamers because those are more connected with places like Go Gaming and the esports scene where we are, like to fill that gap, to be visible at those places, to be around surrounded by casual gamers, to get them more involved in the esports scene, especially for the Benelux. I think that's really, really useful for the Benelux scene in general because I feel like there's a huge, huge gap between those. And we need the gamers to get a more healthy ecosystem in the Benelux, right?
Yeah, I think it's like with traditional sports. If you can't have a competition without participants, so what you need is you need people who are interested in what you're doing. So in this case, gamers are theoretically already interested in the basics of esports because esports revolves around an online game. So, for example, League of Legends, it's not that all of those millions of players are all esporters, but they all have interest in the game. And you need those attracted to your esports scene so you can actually build more of a structure. Because right now, what we see in the Benelux, instead of what you traditionally do with football, you start locally with your school, with your or soccer organization in your local village. And then you go to, for example, a national team, you go to an international team, and you have like a clear path where you want to go. And it starts as a hobby, it might escalate and surprise you're at Ajax or Manchester United suddenly, right? Not that easy, but you get the drift, right? There's a clear path.
Yeah.
And with esports, it's more like, oh yeah, some people are doing some stuff. I might win a trophy, might get $200. Team Liquid. It's a bit scattered. There's no clear
How-
path. There's no clear structure. You're not involved when you start school. You get involved because someone accidentally tells you that there is a competition.
Yeah.
So we need the structure, and for that, what you mentioned, we need those players.
If we look to maybe you as an example, Stein, you started with esports or an esports organization. Kevin mentioned like friends around you or people around you. You accidentally kind of tell them something about esports. How does your family and friends look at you when you're talking about esports, or how do you even tell them about esports?
Well, I think that still my parents don't really exactly understand what is going on. And I think it's also a little bit maybe of a gap between the age. I think that they don't see it that seriously until we started actually doing the charity events, like actually signing for a business. And I think that they are seeing it more as a job right now than it was before. Because at the start they always were like, "Oh, gaming's bad. Gaming's bad for you. Go play outside." And
Touch your
I
grass.
think, yeah, exactly. No, but I think that they have more of an understanding now that they can actually see what I'm doing and that they see more official documents. They see that there's actually quite some money involved in certain things, and it was really hard to actually explain it to them, but now they're slowly getting more used to it. And for example, with my friends, they are not really into the competitive gaming, but when they know that plays, then I will always send them a link like, "Hey guys, we're playing tonight," and they always just really enjoy watching it because it's, well, my team obviously that's playing. But I think explaining it to them is way easier, obviously, because of the relatable gaming knowledge. And yeah, I think that's the biggest part. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like for people like they're maybe willing to do something in esports or actually doing something in esports. Like we gave some tips and trick how to start and how to grow and where to start. But what if you want to tell to people around you what you're doing? Like, how are you going to explain? Like, I'm like an esports team owner, or if I'm an esports team manager, or how do you even tell that? Because I think it's can be important to start growing your network as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you mention, for example, I'm the owner of a esports organization, they usually look at you like, "What are you talking about?" Especially like the more other people are like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But once you actually explain that it's just not just gaming and that's it, there's a lot of things behind it. They usually get quite interested and they have more of a view on what is esports really, because
Yeah.
most people just see it as gaming.
Yeah,
Just sitting
And
behind
you-
your desk.
yeah,
some
yeah.
chips.
I mean, that's a part of the job, right? But you mentioned like there are more things behind it than just gaming. At the start, at the introduction, you mentioned you're the CFO, like all the financial stuff. What are you actually doing then within Myth?
Well,
What is a
at first,
CFO?
yeah, it's a chief financial officer. So basically, all the money stuff goes through me. That's why I have a Lamborghini outside. No, but it's. I think it was for me. I always wanted to have my own business, so I kind of wanted to learn about the financial stuff, and there was a really great opportunity to take this role and to really learn about it. And I noticed that it is a lot harder than I expected at first. There's quite a lot of rules you have to do with the banks. Obviously, you have to deal with a lot of companies, and that sometimes can be quite hard. But like I said, I do the financial stuff, so I pay the salaries to the players, and yeah, it's just a really big opportunity to actually learn something more about it. And yeah, I really enjoy doing it.
What kind of tasks do you have then as a CFO? Like you mentioned, like paying the salaries, but what are more of those things? Try to point them out a little bit for people that are listening or watching. Like, okay, I mean, CFO, esports organization. I want to do something in esports. What are you actually doing in the organization? I mean, you said paying salaries, but what are more of those things?
Well, I think that it's just really predicting what the budget will be for next year. How much do we need? How much will be spent on which game, like which department? What is our budget? All the things related to the taxes and stuff. And because there's a whole lot of things behind that as well. And basically everything related to the money. And I think that this is the best way to just sum it up, kinda. Because, like I said, with the whole tax situation in the Netherlands, you have to pay tax as a company, obviously. Can't just take the money, but it is...
You said paying taxes as a company, so that means you have to be registered to the Chamber of Commerce, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, go on.
No, go ahead.
All right, maybe just to actually start looking a bit more around the actual jobs we're all having. Like, obviously, I know what we are doing, but Martin, like, you are the
CEO.
but the COO. What does that mean? I mean, what do you actually do within the organization?
CEO is Chief Operating Officer. My main job within Myth is the content and managing still the Rocket League team behind the manager itself.
So you're managing the manager.
Yeah, you can say something like that. That's how you can say it. The manager is doing his stuff, and he's just informing me with things that I need to know. That's important for me. But the most of things he is managing with his players. And about the content, yeah, I'm not a creative mind, but I'm thinking about all the content you see on our social media, so like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and Twitter. Yeah, I'm trying to fix those all.
I mean, we should put a link under in the description, right?
Yeah, definitely, with all our socials.
All right, and
Just
that's
follow it.
myth_NL for the people who aren't watching or checking the description. And Kevin, you mentioned co-CEO, right? Like we are together the CEOs of Myth. What how would you describe our job, or at least your job? I mean, there are kind of small differences between us, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, what of course we did is we decided to take us on together because we have a bit more of a mixed skill set. So I'm more of the, how do you say it, IT guy. I think very logically and very critically sometimes. And that's also why some people might get a small stroke if I give them feedback because, well, we're nitpicking everything. And I think you're more of the social guy. I mean, you're able to talk to anyone about any topic. And I'm easily like, oh, yeah, I'm not interested in this, goodbye. So I think we both have our strong suits, right? So I think a chief executive officer has the important job of maintaining the course of the ship. In this case, our company has a certain vision. You have a long-term goal, and the long-term goal, the standards are set by the CEO together with, well, in our case, like the board of directors, all of us. And it's our job to maintain that we're actually going on course to our goals. And it's also our job to set the standards, the steps in between. How are we going to achieve that goal? Who's going to do what? Why are these guys doing it? And then, of course, maintain it. So reflect on what they're doing. How are they doing it? Can we improve something somewhere? So we're basically streamlining that process on top of it. And more specifically, like you and I are both working on partnerships. Me more on the technical ones, but also like whatever pops up, right? And in my case, I also work more on health and performance, where you're more working with the social aspect, the team sometimes, recruiting, that area.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of sums up like all the jobs within like the board directors, at least. I think maybe like we mentioned some things which are important to run an organization or start an organization. But I think one of the things is kind of important as well. Like you mentioned already, within the night, Stijn, is try to gather the right people around you. But I think it's also important to, like, we do have a meeting together, like almost every 2 weeks. Like, yeah, sometimes it's kind of 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but we're trying to at least meet at least every 2 weeks. And I think that's important as well, especially when you are working together with more people at the top of the organization. Try to get a structure to meet with each other. Try to work on an agenda during the meeting as well, trying to point out everything. Um, and try to make a structure to work around. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, I think what I do miss here is that most of you guys were talking about experienced people, get the right people in place, but the right person doesn't have to be someone experienced, in my opinion. So, for example, when I
Facts.
joined Myth, I was like zero experience at all. You just have some players suddenly, and they're talking to each other in a way like, "Oh, is this normal?" Yes, it was at the time, right? Not anymore because we have different standards now. But in theory, gamers sometimes have very specific vocabulary. Not to spill the beans too much. But I think motivation is the key factor here in communication. So what you mentioned, like getting on board every 2 weeks, that's the important part. Just so you keep everyone on track, and you need someone to set that standard, just to tell them, all right, we're gonna go for this goal, and this is your role in it. Like, you can't have everyone try and steer a different direction. You need a leader, someone who pulls the ship, and the rest to basically help and support it and learn as they go, because esports is not that defined yet, right? Like, we know what esports is, but all the companies in there, they all do it on their own ways.
Yeah, that's
and of
true.
course there's a lot of overlap, but in the end, I think when you have several groups of people, most of them could succeed as long as they're motivated and they have certain goals they keep setting themselves, and they keep communicating and keep involving everyone, rather than, oh yeah, I just need to hire the right people and we'll magically make it.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned involving everyone. If we look at Myth, how many people are there right now in the organization? Like staff, coaches, players, and everybody involved?
Way too little. No, let's say
Way
we
too
have
little.
yeah, one more. Yeah, let's say per team 3 till 5 players.
I
Then
think it's
one,
like 25 maybe. 30?
1 to 3 man coaching. So yeah, I mean, way beyond that already. We have us 4.
Yeah.
League of Legends alone is already 8 people. Would be 12. Look at Rainbow Six, it's already 6 people. 18.
2 Rocket League teams.
Yeah,
Yeah,
both
2
of
Rocket League
those.
teams.
So I think we're looking at 40, 50 at this
Yeah.
point. And we also, of course, have Anita and some partners that also are basically working with us.
Yeah.
More than just being partners.
Yeah. I think
yeah,
that's also one of the important things as well. Like, we've been talking about partners or sponsorships, but don't, like, if you are listening and willing to expand your organization or start your organization, don't see them as just as a sponsor. They're your partners. You have to work together and work together in that ambition, right? You have to grow together, and you have to pull up each other to the next level, and just set the ambition higher and higher and higher, and keep growing together. And just not look at them as your sponsor or just a partner. Just work together. And I think that's what you mentioned. They're not just around the organization. They're kind of involved in the organization. And that's
I think you should do that. It's like a mutual relationship. Like, you give them something meaningful, and they give you something meaningful. And sometimes it's a bit in the middle, right? It's neutral ground. You're both gaining something out of it, or you're investing a bit more this time. But yeah, it's like a relation, literally. So if you give someone something good, they might return the favor later. But of course, it's up to you to decide if you should.
Yeah. All right. We're close to an hour already. So maybe it's time to wrap a little bit up. Okay. So, Stijn, as the original founder and of Myth Esports, maybe we can wrap up again. What are your do's and don'ts when you want to start an organization?
I think I can point a few do's out for sure. I think communication is really important. Really, don't make promises you can't keep. I think that's also a really good one that Martin said.
Martin mentioned, yeah.
That's the one Martin said, yeah. And I think, like you said, just make a really good plan, like a business plan. I think that's a really good one as well, that you have a clear vision of what you want to do and how much time will be attached to it.
And with the communication part, you mean the Twitter, Discord, and LinkedIn and those kind of things, or?
Yeah, I think both. I think the social media is really important. Those kind of communication, but also communication with people that will be in your arc. I think if you have your partners here, like us four, you have to keep communicating every day and be clear to each other on everything.
Yeah,
I think it's also important to have the right people next to you. So as what Kevin said, it must be someone with experience, but if he has the right motivation, you can reach everything you want. So if you have the right motivation to be a manager, you can still learn it. And if you're open for help, why you should not be helpful? You have to help each other. That's one important thing in the whole Benelux scene as well right now. Help each other.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing you mentioned here. Be open to help each other. I mean, you don't have to spill all the beans, like Kevin mentioned, but be open to help other organizations in the next steps, because that's like good for the scene in general. And we do have a little steps to make in the Benelux. Kevin, are you able to mention like a small summary about the next steps? Like if you Stein mentioned how to start an organization. Martin gave us a few tips. All right, and if you started an organization, how are you going to grow? What are the tips to actually grow to the next level?
I think what a lot of people do is they want to consistently grow, right? They want to always improve, always expand, and I don't think expansion is always the right thing. I think what you should look for first is how can you ensure continuity. So how can you keep what you currently have as risk-free as possible? Like there's no such thing as no risk, but you want to make sure that most of the parameters are in your direction. So multiple income sources. Make sure that, for example, you have so many people in your organization that if one person falls out, not the entire, for example, Rainbow Six team or League of Legends team has to dip. You need someone to be able to cover those bases. And once you're structurally organized in that way, I think what you could look for is, hey, what's our next goal? What's our next vision? What do we need to achieve it? And slowly work towards those things constantly. So what we're doing as well is we have an esports team. We wanted to grow in higher divisions. We are in higher divisions now. And we certainly realized, hey, we don't invest enough in our coaching stuff because they're getting paid less than players. I mean, that may be fair, maybe not. Everyone has an opinion about it, right? But also we're not actually developing them. So we're developing players, but not the coaching staff, but actually have to develop our players. So that's a goal for us. We want to improve that. So now we're working on that. But we're making sure that everyone else doesn't get affected by us working on the new thing.
Yeah. All right. And I think one of the things I'd like to mention as well, and I think that's kind of for all of us. If you're listening right now or watching us, and if you have any questions about the things we just said, or if you have any questions about other things we didn't mention, feel free to contact one of us through Discord, Twitter, and all the other social medias. And I think we'll just link our Twitters underneath here. And just feel free to follow us, send us a DM, join the Discord of Myth, and just shoot whatever question you want. And if we can't answer, we won't. But I think the most questions we can answer. And by that, I think I'd like to thank all of you for listening or watching the podcast, the first episode of the Mythopedia podcast. Make sure to like and comment also underneath it. If just share your thoughts with us. I mean, this is the first one I would like to improve. And also, if you would like to hear something in the next episode, just mention it. And we're trying to figure it out if we can make it happen. So once again, thank you all, and hope to see you next time.
Yes, see ya.
See you next time.